All right, back on a Thursday night as we dive into the Mar-a-Lago controversy, the case perhaps building against former President Trump. Dr. John Weil is our guest, political professor at MTSU, and we want to get right to the phones as we continue this conversation. The first to call in, and that is Nathan. Hi, Nathan.
Hi, how you doing?
Doing well. What's on your mind?
Yes, I was wondering if he does get indicted, how much, what would he get indicted for the alleged crimes that he's committed, and how long will he be facing?
Okay, that is a good question. We will listen to Dr. Weil, and we should point out this is separate from the January 6th commission, which was supposed to meet yesterday, I think, again, but delayed it because of the Hurricane Ian. Obviously, we're not sure when they will resume. I'm not sure if I've seen a reschedule on that. But, you know, what could this lead to? What are the implications legally for the former president?
Well, I will tell you that there are some people who think that a former president can't be indicted. I'm not among them. There is sort of a legal doctrine that a sitting president usually is not indicted. Now, a sitting president, as Trump has found out, can be impeached, but as he also found out, that doesn't necessarily mean you'll be convicted and removed. The charges, you know, if he has knowingly kept documents that he isn't supposed to have access to. We know people in recent administrations who have gone to jail for that for you know, a period of years. There's also, of course, the possibility, you know, if the lawyers made the assertion that they didn't have any classified documents when they did, and Trump told them to do it, he could be guilty of perjury. But again, there's so many other, you know, there's a civil case in New York right now involving his business practices. And there are also cases, in addition to the ones that you mentioned, you know, there are cases particularly in Georgia as to whether the conversations that Trump had with
the Secretary of
State and others, you know, were, you know, attempts to subvert the electoral laws. So
and all of these, in all of these, like that conversation, which we've heard or seen the written kind of dialogue there of saying, I need this amount of votes, he said to the Secretary of State. And the former President Trump has said that he was talking about votes for him that he believed were legally cast, but somewhere were not counted. Not that that he wanted the Secretary of State to just fake it and you know commit fraud. Well, that is his argument. Just like he had the phone call to Ukraine, and you know, you know, you're reading it wrong. What do you say about that?
Well, I was actually going to mention the Ukraine thing. This would not be the first conversation that he says has been misinterpreted. The key to remember in a criminal case is it's far more serious than a civil case because it can send you to jail. On the other hand, it requires a much higher degree of proof.
Exactly, you know, and that would be a question too. You know, and obviously I'm not in the Department of Justice, and I'm not an investigator, and I don't have access. You know, I've seen portions of the redacted affidavit. So there's a lot of unanswered questions, which is why we're here tonight. But you know, that I'm thinking, how can they, you know, if it were the case, how can they prove that this was intentional? And the other question a lot of people have is why? Why would the former president or his team of people want access to some of these documents? Big question.
Well, I mean, in the Georgia case, there's pretty clear motivation. If you can if you can switch Georgia from a Democratic column to the Republican, and if Arizona and Pennsylvania and maybe Wisconsin or another, you know, couple of closer states come along, he still has a chance of maintaining the presidency. So there's clearly a motive for it. On the other hand, you know, when you have the wife of a current Supreme Court justice herself saying she believes the election was distorted, it'll be up if it goes to trial. It'll undoubtedly be up to a jury, and it'll be a difficult process, I think, to find a jury.
You know, people, you mentioned that, and it brings up kind of this politicization, I can't say the word, but
I can't either.
politicalization, anyway, you know what I'm saying, of the judicial branch, of the Supreme, those on the left will point to Jenny Thomas and these phone calls on January 6th and scratch their heads and say, she is the wife of a justice, Clarence Thomas, on the Supreme Court. On the other hand, those on the right will rail against whoever leaked the draft opinion of overturning Roe v. Wade, which was just unprecedented, and it's, so there's this back and forth, which, in my view is just sad for the judicial branch. You'd like to think that it isn't political, but these days it is. So let's pause there and get to one more call before our break, because I could talk to you about this forever and take up all the time. Let's go to Mike now. Mike, thanks for holding.
Hey, good evening, Rory.
Good evening.
One of the things I would like to say about Trump is that nobody in the history of not just political office, but period, I have never known anybody that has been able to get away with the things he has done and not be in handcuffs or behind a cell at this time. It's amazing what we do for rich people to give them all this leeway, and lawyers can just keep on with continuance. I know personally, if Trump was black or a woman, black woman or white woman, everything in between, he would have been gone a long time ago. He wouldn't have got in office just based off the Access Hollywood bus tape. It would have been over. But Trump is a reflection on America. It starts with Willie Horton, with President Bush 1, and on. John Kerry disparaging a man who fought in Vietnam with the Swift Boat Act. This leads up to what you have. And if Trump is allowed to get back in office or not be indicted, it really reflects on us as a people, because to me, 70 million people thought he was ethical enough, decent enough to have a second term. And that's what gives me pause every day more than him. He's just a symbol of hate and white supremacy. And anybody, as far as the Mar-a-Lago, I believe he's given those nuclear secrets to Putin. That's his daddy. He loves Putin. And I don't put it past a man who's so petty that he wouldn't even show up for inauguration for Joe Biden. That has never happened, along with millions of other things. And I like to hear the professor's response. But also, I believe the state charges from Attorney General Letitia James of New York is going to be the one that's really going to have a substantial...
The civil charges against his business.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. You guys have a good night.
Thank you. That's interesting that he brought up that, and you talked about that case in New York. And I've read also and seen some commentary about that this could be kind of similar to the way they finally got Al Capone. It wasn't
tax evasion. Yes.
Yeah, it wasn't anything, or like in the movie, I hate to bring up The Firm, right? Yes. Where Tom Cruise's character, a great book by Grisham, by the way, wiggles his way out with, the overbilling and all of that, just a different approach. We'll see how that all plays out. But, that's a great example, that caller, of just how strongly people feel on both sides. I mean, I have heard people on the right and left literally say they feel like the opposition, those on the other side, are from a different planet.
Yes.
It really is remarkable. Those on the Trump side will say, I disagree with what Mike said, because even before he got into office, they were planning to impeach him. And they have it's just one thing after another. They decided that they're going to take this man down anyway. And this is just another, desperate effort, this Mar-a-Lago.
And remember, when Obama was president, Mitch McConnell said his number one goal was to keep him from being reelected.
Yep. Yeah. This is politics today.
And Republicans right now, some of them are saying if we get the House, the first thing we're going to do is impeach Biden. I don't think there's any legal grounds to do it, but it's become a political tool.
Yeah, it really has. All right, with that, we're going to take another quick break, get some more calls. Stay with us, everybody. Be patient. We'll be back. right.